Hi, this is Richa and Shipra from IIAD Fashion Design Department, and we are here to take you through the ideation process in fashion design. So, ready? What is ideation? Simply put, ideation would entail the following: to explore, to question, to analyze, to refine, and to realize. Ideation is idea generation, a phase within the fashion design process that generates multiple ways, new alternatives of how a garment can be made, addressing a specific purpose or end use. This is an example where an ideation is shown by sketching on paper. In fashion, we ideate keeping the body in mind. The first step towards this, in most cases, however, starts by simply generating ideas on paper. First, think two dimensionally and then three dimensionally. So, what is achieved through ideation? Ideation helps you to realize that there are numerous ways to achieve a solution. Remember, there is no one way. It helps you break the stereotype through experimentation. It broadens your perspective. It creates a pool of ideas to pick from. It is a think it through approach that helps achieve a foolproof option to an extent. And most importantly, think of the impossible to make it possible. So, through the ideation process, remember that this is a process where you can have fun. This is where the fun begins. You explore and you let your imagination flow. So, what are the factors to consider while ideating a garment, since we're talking about fashion design here? First, the context or the purpose of use, such as is it anything specific to a client's need? For example, with reference to the gender, age, or an occasion? Or is it addressing a particular problem or a concern? For example, are you designing for individuals with special needs? Function, which means comfort, something that facilitates body requirement. Does it give meaning or character to the wearer? Or is it addressing, fulfilling an emotional aspect of the wearer? Form and structure. This means how is the garment made? How will the garment open? What is the fit? What is the size? Is it a free size? Is it going to fit everyone? Is it reversible? Is the garment convertible? Or, in fact, how is it packed? Material. What is the fabric? Is it cotton? Is it polyester? Is it wool? Is it silk? Does it have stretch? Does it have a special feature? Or is it just paper? Are you looking at smart textiles? Or are you combining IA with fiber? These are the aspects that you can freely think while you're ideating. Material surface, which means texture. What is the texture? Is it reflective? Is it embroidered? Is it hand painted? Or is it printed? Or is it digitally printed? Or are we talking about 3D printing in fashion design? Or how is the texture or the material surface interactive with an outside environment? For example, does it interact with sunlight? Does the color change with photosynthesis? So these are all the areas that you can explore. Color. Color plays a huge role. What is the color that you're suggesting and why? Also use step 1, that is defining the problem, and step 2, that is insights, to ideate. This will help you define the problem well and research on existing solutions or the existing designs, and then ask, why don't these existing solutions work? What are the issues that they don't address? So you have to ask, now what? And what if? And so what? Moving forward, so now you have with you the problem statement, the existing solutions that give you the insights, and now you ask, now what what if, and so what. And this is where you start ideating. Always remember, when you ideate, let your imagination let loose. What we are looking while ideating is novelty ideas. This is an example of one of our students' work where you can see you can start by generating tons of ideas. There are many ways of doing this. Each one of us is creative and need to channelize our thinking a little bit to get into an ideation mode. You can also do this collectively as a group or as a pair. Ideation works brilliantly when there are more minds put together. A very important aspect of ideation is to ask the right questions. So you can do this individually by dumping all your ideas or questions or thoughts on one page and then diverging and converging from there. We shall talk about divergence and convergence going further. Now let's talk about rapid ideation. Rapid ideation is a phase where you flow with your imagination. So there are various aspects of rapid ideation. The first one, of course, being brain dump. It literally means dumping. This means individually jotting down all your ideas you share with each other after everyone has some ideas on paper and build on it. The reason why it's called brain dumping is actually when you're dumping without thinking. Brainstorming, which is a group work. You share collective ideas on a sheet together where everyone shoots ideas off their heads without analyzing. Brainwriting. You pass your individual ideas to others in the group so that they can build on it further. This helps you generate a pool of ideas to choose from. Sketchstorm. This can be done individually or collectively. You express ideas visually through sketches or diagrams instead through words. This is also helpful for people who are visually inclined. You can also consider making collages in a sketch storm. Best, but not the least, worst idea first. You start putting all the bad ideas that come to you till all the bad ideas are out of the window so you can move to some real good ones. Yes, everyone has good ideas and bad ones. But doing this, you at least know what not to do. This is an example of brain dumping or even mind mapping, where you just start jotting down ideas around the context that you're working. So, this means you are talking about this also includes your research, it includes the first ideas that come into your head. Um, Make sure and remember this does not, it's not necessary that this makes sense, but this needs to start your imagination going. Here's another example of a student's work where she has considered all elements that she needs to keep in mind during her design process. Here she has also combined visuals along with words. So if this is the method that works for you, go for it. You can also ideate visually through collaging using some techniques like origami or paper folding. Do not stress, you can always use a newspaper or any paper that's available to you. Here's an example where a student has brain dumped as well as explored on the form as a parallel process. So sometimes it works where you're ideating through words and you're creating something parallelly using probably a rough fabric in this case. Sketch storm or visual exploration can take many forms, as you can see in these images. It can be a combination of just images or textures with images, material exploration on images, and so on. So, keeping in mind where we discuss the factors that you need to consider while iterating a garment, you can always pick up one of the aspects from that and start ideating around it. Explore all color options. You also explore all Colors. This can be done keeping either the client requirements in mind or keeping the color forecast in mind if it is so required. You could also have your materials shortlisted and threads and other accessories ideated upon. Here's an example of visual exploration on a muslin or a rough fabric. After you have diverged and explored all options, you begin to converge and start collating your main ideas to start zooming into them. As you can see in this sketch, how the student has started zooming into a sleeve detail where she is deciding where the closure is going to be, where the buttons are going to be put, is it going to be, how is it going to be locked, how will it be unlocked, is there going to be a drawstring, where is the panel going to go, is there a 3D closure, is there a casing, does it need a pocket. So you converge your ideas on one element and you start detailing this out. This is what convergence means. So when you're diverging, so when you diverge into many ways of looking at the same thing, and when you out of those you select one and then you start converging and detailing them out.
So my colleague Richa spoke about ideation technique 1. The next technique to be aware of is taking your ideas from 2D to 3D. We spoke a bit in the beginning about various ways of ideating, starting from paper and then moving to form. You can see from these visuals how students are testing their ideation around a form, in this case another student. This is a great way to check proportions, fall and function of a garment. Through this example, you can see that this particular client has special needs that need addressing. This project was related to understanding various body types and special needs and solving specific problems related to dressing up. In this case, ideation started by understanding different body types. Sketching, taking photographs, using body visualizer, etc. are tools to understand the body to start with. Here you can see the research and insights to understand various body types. Students focused on closures that are easy to use by the client, wearability, and ease of handling, as well as independence of dressing. Focus areas such as mobility and muscle movement have been kept in mind while ideating. We move on to example 2. In this, you can see that ideation has taken place on the form directly. The idea was to focus on convertibility of the garment, where the jacket can take a different shape and be worn in multiple ways. This is a form of sketch storm, but it is done on the body. It is sketched out, but it is sketched around the body. So you can see how it's falling on the body, what are the color proportions, what happens when the person is moving, movement, mobility, all of these things are considered in ideation here. In this sheet, you can see technical exploration or ideation through paper patterns. We'll reiterate a few points just to freshen up. So you zoom in to detail out contents. The more detailed your ideation will be, the closer you are to creating an accurate prototype. This is where design turns into engineering. Imagination meets logic and technology. Shortlist your 3 best ideas that match the requirements as stated in the beginning. We'll go through another few examples. Through this example, you can see a student trying on different motif patterns on a form. Even though motif can be viewed as a flat two-dimensional element, one has to envisage it around the garment. In this sheet, you can see a motif being developed flat on the surface as well as how it is looking on the form. This is the final motif placement which has been ideated. Here you can see how the making of the garment has been planned with details of opening, materials, specifications, etc. And this is what the student's final range plan looked like. Here you can see the elements of color being used, there's proportion, there's form generation, there's details of motifs. One more example to make you see three-dimensionality and ideation. In this last example, you can see the entire process from 2D to 3D. Here the student has started generating ideas on paper and then has moved on to the body. You can see some sort of a sketch storm here where he's put down all his ideas. Visual extractions of form has been done here. Here you can see how he's planned that around the body. So a slightly more complex version of sketch storm, but on the body form in three-dimensional, from a three-dimensional viewpoint. Some of the prototypes have been shortlisted here from his vast range of ideas. So every design process or ideation would have some sort of divergence and then convergence and editing. Exploration and ideation on the form can be seen here. You can see how the student is tracing the body size onto a brown paper. It's easy to draw an idea on a paper, but you have to think through to realize the form. What seems like a simple bubble-like structure on paper took a lot of efforts to be created on a fabric. You can see in the picture on the right how the student has broken down the sphere into parts to create the form. In this slide, you can see visual explorations on the form before shortlisting the final idea. So you can see how he has envisaged the form on the body with these other elements that he's going to use. This is the final edited idea with the supporting technical details. Prototype and fitting with realization of the final output, you can see on this slide. So this is how the final thing looked. This is like a final finished shoot of his garment. Finally, some tips to remember for ideation. You start with what you like. You get over the assumption that the final outcome has to be complex. It does not. Some outputs are best done simply. If you have a creative block, ask the right questions. You revisit the problem statement and criteria as checkpoints. Be open to peer review. Use as many brains as possible. These are the students whose works have been used here for references. So they're from 3 batches of IIAD. And that's it from our end. I hope you guys found this helpful and can refer to it for your teamwork. Thank you so much. Signing out here, Shipra from IIAD and Richa, my colleague.